Tim Mahoney, filmmaker slash archaeologist. I know you weren't trained in this, correct?
No, not at all.
How did that work? I mean, you really almost had to put two hats on.
Well, I've been at this for 12 years. Mm-hmm. What ends up happening is that I'm not an archaeologist, but I'm an investigative filmmaker. So I'd probably say that whenever you investigate something, you read all the material. You're a student of it.
Right.
And so between myself and writing partner Stephen Law, we've read and gathered and looked at something for years, for over a decade. And we've interviewed some of the top people. I've noticed that when I've gone and talked with a scholar, I might have talked to more other scholars than they have because I've gone on 50 or 60 interviews and gathered a lot of material. So that's how come I have learned so much. And that's what we're trying to share with others in this film.
You talk a lot throughout the video, and particularly towards the end, and I hear you on your interviews that you've done with others. What a powerful tool this would be for a skeptic. Why is that? Now, obviously, you're challenging something. As a matter of fact, you've got skeptics on the film.
Yes. Well, the reason why I think it works, I think there are people right now that are pretty confident in their doubt of the Bible. And they feel very comfortable that there's no evidence. What this film does is it basically allows different viewpoints to be shared. And you're going to hear people that say there is no evidence for the Exodus, and they're going to be very adamant about it, and they're going to tell you why. But then we're going to start showing a pattern of evidence. And what we found is the fact that we've allowed to have multiple viewpoints takes down the barriers for people. And it allows them to basically go, you know what, I think there's something here. And I think that's the reason why the film is so shareable and why it's doing well. And you can share it with your family or friends that you've been talking to about the Bible, but they won't listen. Say, hey, let me show you a film that's very, very investigative and very balanced. And let's talk about what the film is about.
Well, if I play this trailer, they're going to hear some of the voices that are skeptic. I'm not sure if the particular rabbi I have in mind is in your trailer. I'll find out here in just a minute or two. I was so intrigued he was being interviewed by Michael Medved, but you still got skeptic voices in this little 3-minute trailer. Let's play that.
The whole thing, from the beginning of the sojourn in Egypt, the slavery, Moses and the Exodus, the conquest of the Promised Land, is all there in one nice, neat line, but it's way too early.
I don't believe there was a single event that we can call the Exodus.
This person can't have seen all this. He imagined it.
I'm very much against chronological revisionism.
There is nothing else like this in the whole of Egyptian history.
Really?
Nothing at all.
When you put those cities side by side, the biblical account and the archaeology match extremely well.
So far, there is no documented evidence about the Exodus.
Exodus did not happen in the way that it is described in the text.
How can we prove that?
You look for a collapse in Egyptian civilization, and that's where you'll find Moses and the Exodus.
If we can prove there even was an Exodus.
I think everybody in the field is biased, one way or another.
Whether it was true, it is true. And those are two different things.
An E, an A, and an L. Israel. Israel.
There's a high probability that we're looking here at Joshua's conquest.
I hate to disappoint people, but we have no evidence for a single mass migration of people from one country coming into another country.
There are no archaeological sources that could prove this took place.
We have no evidence.
If people are telling us that there was no Jericho at the time that Joshua conquered the Promised Land, and therefore Joshua is a piece of fiction, and therefore the conquest is a piece of fiction, why don't we ask the simple question, when was Jericho destroyed?
In terms of reconstructing ancient history, a lot hinges on the answers.
Do you think this is Joseph?
Either it is Joseph or it's somebody remarkably the same.
We have tombs that are clearly those of foreigners, Semites. We can tell this by the pottery, by the kind of weapons. These are not Egyptian-type daggers. They have donkeys in some cases buried with them. This was not an Egyptian practice.
This is real evidence for the time when the Israelites were in Egypt as slaves.
We were slaves? Why? I mean, if you're going to dream up a story, surely you'd come up with a better one than that.
Look at your evidence and come to a conclusion based on the evidence.
So you have a connection between the Bible story and these tablets.
We have a name that's identical. We have a tablet coming out of the ground with the name Jabin on it. And in the story of Joshua, Joshua killed King Jabin of Hatzor.
Why is it that we've never heard of these finds?
Because in the scheme that's used by scholars to date all these events, they're way too early.
We may be wrong 10 years here, 10 years there, but there's no way, to shift centuries.
Because it would undo a lot of their books, wouldn't it?
It certainly would, yes.
Tim, basically your film actually proves there was an exodus. I mean, I could go into the more detailed, intricate issues of it, but you prove that things are off by 200 years and there was an exodus exactly as the biblical account relates.
That's correct. But what we're basically doing is we're building a case that there's a pattern of evidence that matches the story in the Bible, and people are ignoring it. And what the film is doing is bringing it to light.
Yeah, and that's what you bring out, and you bring out, is it six? I think it's six
major events.
6 major events that are going to prove that the Exodus is exactly as it was written down in the Bible.